So, imagine waking up tomorrow morning. The sun is just starting to come through the blinds, right? And you reach over to check your phone.
Like you do every morning.
Exactly. But your lock screen is just gone. Instead, there's just a solid black background and a single string of plain white text. It reads, quote, "We are not alone."
And you probably try to close the app or, restart the phone, but the power button does absolutely nothing.
Right. So you get out of bed, you turn on the television, every single channel, like news, sports, cartoons, it is all broadcasting that exact same black screen.
It's chilling.
It really is. And that exact same text is there. You look out your window, and the digital billboard down the street, the one that usually shows car commercials, it says it too. We are not alone. Every screen, everywhere on Earth, all at once. That is the terrifying high-stakes premise of the movie Disclosure Day.
And the suddenness is really what makes it so jarring, I think. There is no gradual buildup, No astronomers tracking a distant comet for months or classified government leaks.
Yeah, zero warning, and we are dropping you straight into this today. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the absolute chaos, the mystery, and, well, the profound emotional impact of the ultimate first contact scenario depicted in Disclosure Day.
It's such an intense ride.
Because the film just drops us right into the deep end without a life vest, governments instantly shutting down airspace, sirens blaring everywhere, streets flooding with panicked people. Nobody knows if this is a peaceful greeting or literally the beginning of the end of the world.
Right, and the truly scary part, the horrifying realization that whatever arrived, it did not come quietly. It seized control of our entire global infrastructure in a millisecond.
Which is insane.
Totally. I mean, to pull off a coordinated global screen hijack like that, we aren't talking about simply hacking a few servers.
Right.
From a technical standpoint, an entity would have to instantly override the global DNS infrastructure, bypass every localized air-gapped firewall, and just hijack all satellite telematics simultaneously.
Just reading about that makes my head spin.
Yeah, it represents a level of technological superiority that renders human defenses completely obsolete before a single shot is even fired. It is an immediate, aggressive assertion of total dominance over our communications. And then, well, the sky fills up?
Yes. We start seeing these massive monolithic objects. They just descend through the clouds and park themselves, hovering ominously over major cities worldwide, like London, Tokyo, New York, Mumbai.
Just hanging there.
Yeah, they are just there. And they do absolutely nothing. There is no laser beam hitting the White House. There are no landing ramps extending. There is no further communication after that initial screen hijack. They are just watching. Okay, let's unpack this because the tension of that inaction is just unbearable.
It really is the worst part.
Right. Imagine you are locked in a small windowless room, and in the corner of that room is a massive apex predator, like a tiger or a silverback gorilla. It doesn't roar, it doesn't charge at you.
Just waste.
Exactly. It just sits there, completely still, staring directly into your eyes. For hours, for days. I would argue that the agonizing anticipation of the strike is actually worse than the strike itself.
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is how accurately that taps into human psychology on a mass scale. Like, in the field of psychology, there's a concept called ambiguity aversion.
Okay, what's that exactly?
Well, when we face a clear threat, our brains are hardwired for fight or flight, right? We evaluate the danger, make a choice, and act.
That makes sense.
But when a threat is entirely static and its motives are completely unknown, it just short-circuits those coping mechanisms.
Right.
The true terror for the masses in Disclosure Day isn't a fear of what the objects are currently doing because, well, they're doing nothing.
They're literally just floating.
Yeah, it is the paralyzing, consuming fear of what they might do next. That limitless void of possibility is far more destructive to the human psyche than a defined enemy.
I want to push back on something here, though. In a lot of disaster movies, and even in real history, when a massive crisis hits, humanity actually tends to unite. Like, look at the Blitz in London during World War II, or how communities come together after a major earthquake. We usually put aside our differences and help each other.
That's a very fair point.
But in Disclosure Day, society just fractures completely. Doesn't that contradict how humans actually respond to disasters?
Well, that is a crucial distinction to make. Sociologists often point out that humans unite during known physical disasters. Like, when a hurricane hits, the parameters of the threat are understood.
Right. The water rises, buildings fall, and the collective goal is survival and rebuilding.
Exactly. But what the movie portrays isn't a physical disaster. It is an ontological shock.
An ontological shock.
Yeah, an ontological shock occurs when your fundamental understanding of reality, of your place in the universe, is just shattered overnight. We aren't uniting to stack sandbags. We are facing a complete loss of planetary autonomy.
Oh, wow. That's a terrifying way to put it.
The cognitive load of that uncertainty is so heavy that social contracts simply evaporate.
And the story really smartly anchors this global event by following a small, fractured group of people on the ground. We transition from this massive existential threat in the sky to incredibly intimate human struggle.
Yeah, you get to see how it affects real people.
Right, you have scientists trying to apply the scientific method to something that just defies physics.
Yeah.
Government officials desperately trying to maintain a facade of control. And ordinary people violently caught in the middle of a historical paradigm shift.
And they're all at each other's throats.
Utterly divided. Some are convinced the visitors are peaceful, that they're here to elevate us into some galactic federation. Others believe it's already over, that we are just bugs waiting to be stepped on.
And that ideological division immediately manifests as physical chaos.
Right.
Because, the structures of civilization like law, economy, social order, they're incredibly fragile.
They really are.
They're essentially just agreements we make with each other to keep the machine running. The moment a hovering silver monolith suggests that those agreements are meaningless, the whole illusion just shatters.
Right. We see supply chains vanish overnight. Cities break down into total gridlock. The power grid starts failing.
It's a complete domino effect.
And it fails not because the aliens attacked our power stations. It fails because the people running those stations abandoned their posts to go deal with their families. We literally destroy our own infrastructure.
Yeah, the uncertainty drives a wedge into the foundational trust of society. It forces us to look at ourselves. And in the absence of actual information, misinformation just fills the void.
Oh, the rumors are wild.
Exactly. The rumors spreading through whatever analog radios and offline networks are still functioning just turn people against each other. People become so desperate for a scapegoat, for any semblance of control, that they turn their terror outward onto their neighbors.
But amidst all that massive societal collapse, the film gives us these devastatingly quiet, emotional moments, like people using whatever battery life they have left on their isolated devices to call their loved ones.
Yeah, just reaching out one last time.
Saying things they've never said before, apologizing for old arguments, because everyone is walking around burdened by this gut-wrenching feeling that something massive, something final is coming. We are tearing ourselves apart while the objects just sit there doing nothing.
It's maddening.
It is. But this is where things take a turn. The agonizing silence of the first act is finally broken. But instead of bringing any kind of relief, it just brings a brand new layer of dread.
Right, because the silence is replaced by a massive influx of data. Signals begin appearing.
Broadcasts coming directly from the hovering objects. They start hitting every radio frequency, every satellite dish, and it isn't just static.
It's highly structured.
Yeah, you can hear it, you can see it on the readouts. They form incredibly complex rhythmic patterns. It is undeniably a message. But there is a massive problem. Absolutely no one can decode it.
Not a single person.
The greatest cryptographic minds on the planet run it through every algorithm, and it yields total nonsense.
Well, to understand why our cryptography fails so completely in this scenario, we really have to look at how translation actually works. In human history, when we decode ancient languages, like, say, Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Right, we use the Rosetta Stone.
Exactly. We rely on a Rosetta Stone. We need a shared cultural referent, a physical object or concept that both languages describe. But if an intelligence evolved on a different planet, under different physical laws or biological imperatives, their entire framework of communication might lack any overlap with ours whatsoever.
That is wild to think about.
Yeah, their syntax could be based on mathematical concepts we haven't discovered, or temporal structures our brains simply aren't wired to perceive.
So we are just sitting there listening to this signal, knowing it holds the most important information in the history of the universe, and we can't even begin to comprehend it. We pride ourselves on being the smartest species, the masters of communication, right? The frustration reaches an absolute fever pitch.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, giving humanity an undecipherable puzzle at this specific moment actually accelerates the global panic. It acts as a blank canvas for society's worst fears.
Because when a message is unreadable, people project their own internal terror right onto it.
Precisely. Like in information theory, there is a concept called Shannon entropy, which measures the unpredictability or noise in a signal.
Okay.
To the human race, This alien broadcast has maximum entropy, and humans abhor a vacuum of meaning. The doomsday cults claim it's a countdown to our extinction. The military interprets the complex rhythms as tactical coordination.
They think it's an attack plan.
Yeah, they think the objects are talking to each other, assigning targets, preparing a coordinated strike. The scientific community is pulling its hair out because the math doesn't align with any known linguistic structure. The noise just becomes an unintended psychological weapon.
And governments have their fingers hovering over the launch buttons. The panic in the streets is turning into full-blown riots. Everything is escalating toward a self-inflicted apocalypse. And what happens next changes everything.
A singular, deliberate action forces a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah. One of the hovering objects, specifically the one over the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, it finally reacts to us. But it's not an aggressive reaction. It is incredibly, almost intimately deliberate.
It's very targeted.
Exactly. It acts as if it is specifically choosing who to communicate with. It isolates a single server, a specific linguistics team's terminal, and bypasses all the global noise. And suddenly, the team gets a breakthrough. The signal they receive now isn't random.
The realization here is profound. It's not that human scientists weren't smart enough to read the first broadcast. It's that those initial global broadcasts were just the extraterrestrial intelligence mapping our networks, scraping our internet, and analyzing our syntax.
Oh, wow. So they were just learning how we talk.
Exactly. The noise was simply calibration. Once they understood how we format information, they sent a targeted transmission.
And it is heavily, perfectly structured. It matches our syntax. It compiles flawlessly into human language on the monitors. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the message they decode isn't a threat. It isn't an ultimatum. And it isn't even a warning.
It is a revelation that completely alters the framework of the event.
When the linguists finally get the translation to compile, the entire context of the invasion, if you can even call it that, flips upside down.
This raises an important question.
Yeah.
Because the central mystery of the event fundamentally alters in that room. For the entire story up to this point, the whole world has been desperately asking, who are they? But the moment that text is translated, the tension violently spikes in a completely different direction.
Right.
The new, far more terrifying question becomes, why are they here?
Because the translated message isn't about the aliens at all. It tells us absolutely nothing about where they came from, how their propulsion systems work, or what their biology looks like. The message is entirely about us.
It's all about humanity.
Yes. It is a painstakingly detailed, historically flawless record of human history. And I don't just mean the big stuff like the fall of Rome or the moon landing. It details specific, localized human decisions, cultural shifts, forgotten wars, private conversations of world leaders from centuries ago. It is an encyclopedic, observational log.
The chilling realization washes over the characters, and the audience really, that humanity is the subject being studied. Not the other way around. They haven't traveled across the stars to conquer Earth or steal our resources. They are here to present their findings on us.
I want you to imagine the sheer vulnerability of that moment. Imagine you've been living in your house your entire life. You feel safe, you have your privacy, you do whatever you do when you think nobody is watching.
Right, totally normal.
And then one day, you find a hidden camera embedded in the wall. You trace the wiring and realize it has been there since the day you were born. It has recorded every single mistake you've ever made, every lie you've ever told, every quiet moment of cruelty or kindness you thought was yours alone.
That's a deeply unsettling thought.
And suddenly, the entity on the other end of that camera speaks to you through a speaker and just starts analytically listing off everything you've ever done. That absolute exposure is what humanity experiences in Disclosure Day.
It is a profound violation of our perceived isolation. You know, the vast unknown of the universe is scary because it is empty space and potential danger. But this truth, this undeniable mirror being held up to our entire species, it proves that we are wholly unprepared to confront our own legacy when viewed through a cold, objective, alien lens. The world is suddenly facing something it has never, ever had to face before. Not an invading army, not a natural disaster, but total, inescapable, documented truth about who we really are.
And honestly, at a certain point, the movie isn't even about aliens anymore.
No, it feels more like humanity being forced to confront itself.
And that exact feeling is what makes Disclosure Day hit so differently.